I'm starting to wonder if Zack Snyder's obsession with slow motion is him actually cluing us into the fact that he is the Flash, and it is agony, having to live in a world where everything moves so much slower than you. That's why it's taking so long for people to realize that Man of Steel is actually a good movie. Zack Snyder's Justice League is the sole, undisputed, unfiltered, uninterrupted vision of one Zack Snyder after a successful fan campaign to release the Snyder Cut, the original version of Justice League that would have been released if Zack Snyder didn't have to leave production due to a personal tragedy. To replace Snyder, Warner Brothers turned to Joss Whedon, creator of Buffy the Vampire Slayer and director of no less than Marvel's The Avengers, to help steer the ship. Now, when Justice League was released in 2017, the main question audiences had was how the film's tone was going to play out. Whedon and Snyder have very different filmmaking and storytelling styles. Whedon uses humor and quirky characters to move his plot along, while anyone that knows Zack Snyder knows that his films are about as serious as a heart attack, with cinematography about as gray as his morally ambiguous players are. I won't lie, at the time I saw it, I didn't hate the Whedon cut of Justice League. I thought it was a fun time at the movies, despite its flaws with character motivations and shifts in tone. Also, I thought some of the flourishes of comedy, some of the small touches actually belonged to Joss Whedon. Well, little did I know, watching the Zack Snyder cut of Justice League, that, holy shit, Zack Snyder actually does have a sense of humor. This is one of the few times where overwhelming fan support has brought a filmmaker's vision back to life. And once word broke out that Snyder had shot his own footage that would complete his own vision of Justice League, complete with the release the Snyder Cut hashtags, it was really only a matter of time before potential investment could pay off. Warner Brothers broke into the Animaniacs vault and hauled out $70 million for Snyder to repiece the story that he wanted to tell. And make no mistake, this 4-hour and 2-minute monstrosity of epic storytelling of epic proportions is 100% his vision. Much like when you're watching a Michael Bay movie, you know you're going to get 1,000 explosions, or when you're watching a Spike Lee movie, you're going to get that really cool dolly shot. If you're watching a Zack Snyder movie, you know what you're getting into. Something I appreciate is that Zack Snyder has a very passionate fan base. Now, when I try to give my opinion of films, I do try to be as objective as possible. But even I admit that I have sometimes an unhealthy affinity for certain filmmakers. Can Ingmar Bergman play a little too cold for audiences? Yes. But his Scandinavian nihilism speaks to me. So, this is to prepare you. Because Zack Snyder's Justice League just may be the most Zack Snyderiest movie ever made. And if you hate Zack Snyder's style, you are going to hate Justice League. And this also begs the question, if you hate a filmmaker's style so much, why are you watching his or her movie? Hate watchers, man. I don't get them. But honestly, the real question is, how does Zack Snyder's Justice League hold up against the Joss Whedon cut of Justice League from 2017? So I'm going to warn you that this is a spoiler review, so this is the last chance that I will give anyone watching this video to go and make sure that they watch Justice League first, then come back and watch the details so they are not spoiled. So obviously the first thing that I noticed with the Zack Snyder cut of Justice League is the cleaner look of the film. You know, one of the big things with the Whedon cut of Justice League a lot of people complained about was the CGI, Steppenwolf's look, for example. Steppenwolf actually looks like an intimidating villain now. A lot of the CGI and the final battle, that red sky is gone, which I'm so happy. I hated that red sky. A lot of those CGI effects, like I said, they just from the original 2017 just didn't age well. But Snyder and his effects team was able to go in and clean up a lot of that. It looks great. Also, Snyder released the film in the original IMAX format, which is the 4:3 aspect ratio, instead of the normal theatrical aspect ratio that you would normally see, where you have like the black bars on the top and the bottom, the widescreen ratio that we are used to. But here we are seeing the 4:3 ratio. I do really appreciate that that Snyder did go out of his way. I know for some people it may be annoying to see those bars at the side, but this is his vision. This is precisely how he shot the movie. This is how he intended for the movie to be seen on IMAX screen. So I do appreciate being able to see the movie in that aspect ratio as well. Now, again, Snyder's style. There's a lot of slow motion in this. I understand, this is a 4-hour, cut of, one person's vision, but everyone in this gets their own moment. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm really glad that, for example, Ray Fisher gets his moment to shine, and Ezra Miller as the Flash gets his own moment to shine. But everyone gets their own weird music video. There's a scene, for example, where Aquaman, who's played by Jason Momoa, is drinking whiskey and is depressed, I think after a meeting with Ben Affleck's Bruce Wayne / Batman, and he's walking down the docks and there are sirens, and sirens smell his sweater and they start singing a siren song while Aquaman walks in slow motion and he drinks his whiskey and the sirens continue to sing. And then I looked at my watch that I didn't wear, but I was still aware that this scene was 3 minutes long. And it happened a lot. Amy Adams didn't get a whole lot to do, and she got a slow motion scene, which was kind of weird because she didn't have a whole lot to do. Now, at the same time, as I mentioned, I do appreciate the expansion of the characters, and we are getting character motivations. So Ray Fisher as Cyborg, he is the heart and soul of the film, and we get to see his full emotional arc. Why wasn't this in the original cut? Because now, instead of someone that just happened to show up and be like, I'm a superhero and I'm brooding, now we actually see what motivates him. We get to see the relationship that Cyborg had with his father, played by Joe Morton, which makes the sacrifice that Joe Morton makes at the end even more effective. So why were these things cut out? I don't get it, but I'm glad that they were reinserted and re-added, so we do get to see that fleshed out. The same with Ezra Miller. Ezra Miller is fleshed out. He actually is the one that saves the world in Justice League. Instead of him having to push a pickup truck of family, just like the 2017 version where, they just kind of gave him some busy work. No, here the Flash actually gets to use his speed and actually gets to use his powers to actually do something. And yeah, I really do appreciate that Zack Snyder took the time to give everyone a moment in his film. Now, at the same time, Ezra Miller has one of the cringiest scenes in Zack Snyder's Justice League. Now, it's not Ezra Miller's fault, of course. So Barry Allen, played by Ezra Miller, has to save Kirstie Clements in a car accident. And it is another one of Zack Snyder's music videos, complete with slow motion. Except this scene has a sesame seed rolling in slow motion. These are examples of moments where most people that have an eye for editing would be like, Mr. Snyder, I'm not sure you need that moment. It doesn't really add anything to the story. But I'm not his editor or his producer. He got the film out. He's made his millions. Who am I? The other surprise when it comes to character motivations that have been expanded is actually Ciarán Hinds as Steppenwolf. So when we are originally introduced to Steppenwolf in the Whedon cut of Justice League, his motivation is to get the mother boxes, and he has this weird interdimensional Oedipus complex. In Zack Snyder's Justice League, Steppenwolf wants to simply go home, but he can't because he's a bitch and he is in debt to Darkseid. 50,000 worlds. Speaking of Darkseid, so Darkseid is in Justice League as well, and he does get a lot of screen time, and I do really like the look of Darkseid. I like the presentation. Everything about him is right, and I really would have liked to see how they would have played that out if we ever did expand the Snyderverse. Obviously, that's not going to happen, but I did appreciate that they did build him up, and they really built him up the right way. They just kind of started with kind of glances, talking about him, then kind of built him up, and then when we finally saw him, and then we kind of saw the threat of Darkseid and knew that this guy was a big baddie. And yeah, I really liked that we got Darkseid in Justice League. It's going to be, a shame that we probably have to see him in the hands of another filmmaker, but at least now we have a base of how Darkseid could be presented in a cinematic world. One of the things that not a lot of critics are talking about is Jeremy Irons as Alfred, and he's actually been one of the bright spots in the Snyderverse. He has these interactions with Henry Cavill, with Gal Gadot, obviously with Ben Affleck, and they're all great. He's just a great Alfred, and I like the fact that he plays him almost kind of world-weary. This isn't the Alfred from like Batman the Animated Series. He knows the score, but he still kind of like has his his British sensibilities or anything like that. This is an Alfred who is kind of ready for war, and he's seen a lot of crazy shit. But at the same time, he is the audience avatar. He is the one that's kind of, seen everything and kind of knows how, this universe works, and is the one that's kind of telling these gods, this is kind of the score here. So I really like Jeremy Irons in these films, and this is one of those things that I do wish, if these films ever were expanded on, I really would have really loved to see Jeremy Irons stay on as Alfred. Now, the film is 4 hours long, so it is going to be very exposition heavy. And there are times where the exposition works, like when Wonder Woman explains the time where the Amazons and the old gods and the humans banded together to fight off Darkseid the first time he tried to conquer Earth. And then there are other times where it doesn't work, like when Cyborg explains his origin, and he even says, well, this story is going to take a while, but do you have any place else to go? But that's lazy writing. They could have definitely done that a little bit better. But all the action scenes, honestly, in Justice League I really believe, are fabulous. Zack Snyder, even despite the slow motion, even if you find that annoying, he does know how to shoot action very well. And the biggest example of that is the chase scene in Themyscira. So when Steppenwolf arrives and he tries to get the mother box. He has to fight off the Amazonians, and it's a fast-paced scene. So it's not like Zack Snyder doesn't know how to do fast-paced action. Some of the other things that I noticed, obviously the scene where Superman wakes up and he fights off everybody, that is a Zack Snyder scene. That is still, I still just love that scene. That just gives me goosebumps when we see the Flash running by Superman and we just see Superman's eye just move an inch. It just that's a show don't tell moment. That is really powerful filmmaking. And then you see the Flash. Oh, I fucked up. We actually get to see how Cyborg sees the world, and I do really appreciate that too. So when Cyborg is plugged in to technology, for example, when he is helping a innocent bystander with their financials, it's not like he's seeing just like ones and zeros like in the Matrix. He's seeing like stacks of money, for example, and he's able to kind of like, it's almost like doing swiping and picking up things and moving them across. I really like that. I really appreciate that. So some of the big spoilers and thoughts about Zack Snyder's Justice League. So Martian Manhunter makes an appearance in Justice League twice. The first time he made an appearance, I was so angry because it undermined a really important scene between Martha Kent and Lois Lane. So Martha Kent is trying to get Lois Lane back into the real world to try to get her to, to wake her up out of her depression, because obviously Clark Kent is dead. And so, Diane Lane and Amy Adams have a really nice, small, touching scene about, trying to get Lois Lane back into, the real world and getting her mental health back and getting her out of her grief. And then, Martha Kent comes out and then the Martian Manhunter. And I'm like, why? That was a great scene. You didn't need to do that. Now, at the end of Justice League, there is an epilogue. This epilogue is basically a series of post-credit scenes that last 4.5 hours. So basically, it's Return of the King on steroids. I did like the awkward interaction between Martian Manhunter and an absolutely exhausted Bruce Wayne, who by this point has already seen everything that he could possibly see in this universe and is at the point where he just has no more fucks to give.
Can I help you? I'm sorry. Who are you again? Well, we could definitely use the help. So, glad you're here. Guess I'll see you around.
So then there is Batman's Apocalypse Visions and the appearance of Jared Leto's Joker. So Zack Snyder is determined to end the world in his version of the DCU and proves that he's probably a fan of the boys or would be a mutant hater, as he is really determined to show that superpowered beings is the worst thing that could happen to planet Earth, including, Superman being an evil person. What would that look like? Well, we saw that in Brightburn, and that was just an okay movie. But this does lead into the main complaint that most fans have had with Zack Snyder directing and leading the DCU, and that is his interpretation of the Superman character and mythos. What's absolutely crazy is I think that Zack Snyder actually got the character of Kal-El right in Man of Steel. To me, it seemed like he understood the burden that Kal-El had, being at the time, because, he didn't know, the sole protector of Earth. It perfectly captured his powers and showed how his powers could be used for both good and evil. And Man of Steel captured the decision that Kal-El made to be a beacon for good. Now, he had to snap General Zod's neck to do it, but it was the lesson that he learned from not saving his father. Man, I'm gonna start getting into Man of Steel and why I really love this movie. Why am I not talking about this? Where was I? Oh yeah. basically how Zack Snyder fucked up his vision of Kal-El and reversed engineered any goodwill he had by turning him into a dark and brooding and villainous character. And this is no different than in Batman's vision, where Superman teams up with Darkseid to take over the Earth. But then suddenly Jared Leto's Joker makes an appearance, and he has now transformed from the crazy tattooed Suicide Squad Joker that he was with the grill and everything like that into, I think it's Marilyn Manson? Anyway, it's an improvement, but it's not the best depiction. But I do appreciate Zack Snyder basically going all the way with his version of Batman, having him go into full give no fucks mode and tells the Joker straight up,
And when I killed you, and make no mistake, I will fucking kill you.
And enjoy it. Then I will go home and ask Alfred to make me a 12-inch New York strip with risotto and a dark whiskey. Then I'll soak in a long bubble bath while I replay me breaking your fucking clown neck over and over and over again. And then I will sleep like a baby.
maybe it didn't go exactly like that, but I got 90% of it okay. And speaking of villains getting a makeover, Jesse Eisenberg returns as Lex Luthor, and we get an insight into Deathstroke and why he hates Batman so much, but that was really just a glorified stinger. That whole sequence lasted maybe no more than 4 minutes. At the end of the day, though, I am happy this version of Justice League exists for no other reason than Snyder was able to complete his definitive vision and move on. And now I hope the rest of the world will be able to as well. As for what I thought of Zack Snyder's Justice League, well, I definitely believe that it is an improvement over the original Whedon cut. I do believe it will age better, except for that damn sesame seed. I really wonder how much money Warner Brothers spent to get that sesame seed to twirl in slow motion. 3.5 Lennies. The film has been a huge success on HBO Max and may be a game changer in terms of how we consume our superhero epics. Not just how we consume that media at home as opposed to watching those big budget blockbuster epics in the movie theater, but as well how we provide our input and have some stake in the filmmaking process as well. After all, it was the fans that successfully campaigned to make the Snyder Cut something that is a reality. So kudos. Now, let's not turn this into our generation's Blade Runner and end up with 80,000 cuts of the same movie. What did you think of Zack Snyder's Justice League? Did you like it? Hate it? Be sure to leave your comments below. And if you like this review, be sure to like the video. And if you want to receive notifications for future reviews and other content, be sure to subscribe and hit the notifications button. Thanks and take care.